Thanks, Lynn. I appreciate it. Hey, this is a big day, and I forgot to remind Lynn about this, but today is a very big day for our OK Ethics Foundation. And it's members like Lindy and Bama and our navigators and our stars and so forth that make funding possible for our students who are competing right now in the National Ethics Bowl in Florida. We have 3 schools that went. Warren, we beat Texas. I'm sorry, I had to mention that. Anyway, so here we are at the National Regional Ethics Bowl. We won't know till tonight how they did, but we so appreciate all of our members' support for these initiatives, and I'm really proud. It's OU, Oklahoma Christian, and OCU that are competing today, so it's a big deal. And Rose State will be competing with the 2-year colleges in March. So what an impact y'all are having on our students. We're very, very proud of them. So I wanted to mention that, and Lynn was right, I talked too much, but we are excited about our April event. This is our Compass Awards, and it's going to feature the CEO of Bama, Paula Marshall, who is a dynamo. You're going to want to hear her. We're going to experiment because this year we're going to try and do a joint program live streaming from Tulsa to Oklahoma City. I'm a little nervous, but I think it's going to work out. And we hope everybody will come. It'll be the first time that we've hosted the Compass Awards in Tulsa. So we're hoping for a really big turnout. Now let me tell you about the awards, because I said Compass Awards, and we've started calling it the OK Ethics Awards because it's all encompassing. For example, your speaker today, he was one of the winners of the Community Impact Awards first time last year. So, and what a great deal, because we got him to speak like 3 times afterwards. So, hey, anyway, you find these gold mines. The Community Impact Award is for schools, it's for nonprofits who are really making an impact in terms of promoting integrity on their campuses and in their communities. And I bet you know a group that deserves that honor. So we hope that you will go online and nominate them today. The other one is the Compass Awards. I want to ask you, I want to kind of preface this because I read this really cool report yesterday. It's by the Ethics Resource Center. And they do kind of a ethical climate survey to see how U.S. companies are doing. So let me ask you this. I want to see a show of hands. How many of you have programs promoting ethical behavior and integrity in your workplaces? Please raise your hands. Okay, this is what I wanted to see. Good. This is good for an ethics audience to raise their hands. 81% of companies these days do have those programs. And here's the good news. We're making a difference. Ethical misconduct is down from 55% to an all-time low of 41%. Now let me ask you this. How many of you measure the impact in an objective way that tells you whether or not your programs are actually working? Okay, not as many. Well, the Compass Awards and the process that you will go through in the application, whether you win or get mentioned or not, is a very valuable tool. It's based on Malcolm Baldrige criteria, and it's a very valuable tool for helping you go in and analyze if your processes are working. I look around, Lindy won last year. I mean, I'm excited. And what is really neat about this, you can go online and you can see applications from past winners. And you can see what they're doing and you can use their ideas. Because, as to paraphrase John F. Kennedy, all ships rise in high tide. And so it makes a difference. It's impactful to the community. So we really encourage you to look in and apply today and join us for the Compass Awards. Thanks for your time. Did I talk too much? No. Okay.
Shannon was worried about talking too much, so she didn't want to introduce anybody else. When Lynn asked me last month to talk about the guiding principle, I was caught off guard a little bit, but then I spent just a moment looking at the website and refreshing myself on the guiding principles for this organization, and they're all, and she said I got to pick which one I wanted to do, and it was difficult to choose. They all have such an impact on ethics and business, but the one I went with was Inspire Trust. And if you read on the website exactly what we mean by inspire trust and what the committee came up with that definition, it's all about each one of us, number one, being trustful through truthfulness. It's about giving that trust to others when it's earned, and it's about when it's earned, not abusing it, not taking advantage of it in some way, shape, or form. But I think it's one of the most important ones because as I looked at the other ones of collaboration and respect, how can you not have all of that if you haven't inspired trust in others? How many of you have just been through the lovely annual performance review process? Come on. Whether you got one or you gave one, right? How much better would that be if you really applied the very concept of inspired trust in this guiding principle? But that was they told me I had 3 minutes, and I think I used much less than that, so I'll give mine to Shannon. But that was my guiding principle for today. And so I'd like to introduce and turn the podium over to Susie Welliford, and she's going to talk about our speaker.
Thank you, Becky. I'm honored to get to introduce Warren Martin today. I got to know Warren Martin during one of those 3 speaking engagements that we had with him on the OK Ethics Board for a planning session. So one thing I can tell you about him is he's very thought-provoking, engaging, and inspirational. So I know we're all in for a treat today. But before we get started, let me tell you a little bit more about him. He's the executive director of the General Tommy Franks Leadership Institute and Museum, and he's the primary presenter of all of its inspired leadership experiences. He's been leading workshops, giving keynote presentations, consulting for Fortune 500 companies for the past 16 years. He's a Texas Tech grad, philosophy major. Don't hold that against him. He's written 5 books. He's also noted as the top 400 speakers in America. Very impressive. And if you ask him about what his passion is, he says it's to invest in the lives of others through servant leadership to help people realize their full potential, which we'll have today. So let's welcome Warren to the stage.
And it's all downhill from here. It is a pleasure to be with you here. I came in and the first thing that was asked was, I thought you'd be wearing a clown outfit or something. You look so normal. And then I get picked on right up here about being from Texas. And I'll tell you what, I feel welcome here in Tulsa. So we're going to have a little bit of fun, and I want you to kind of go along with me on a trip, and we're going to talk about not being normal. We're going to talk about being something other than normal, and that is being extraordinary. I believe that every single person in this room was never, ever called to be normal. You were called to be extraordinary. And I want to talk with you about how you can do that today. Now, I want to tell you a story about a fox. It was a normal fox. In fact, his name was Normal Norman Fox. And Normal Norman went about his day, like most days, to getting up in the morning and going out looking for food. He would look for little field mice. One day he comes out and he finds 2 little field mice that he thinks, they would make a nice little snack. So he takes off chasing after these 2 field mice. He starts chasing in one direction, and then one would cut off to the right, and he'd chase after it. And just when he was about to get that mouse, another one would cut in front of him. And he kept going back and forth between one mouse and the other until finally he had them both pinned. He was ready to gobble them up, and they said, please, sir, don't eat us. Don't eat us. We'll take care of you. Come to find out, these 2 little mice, their names were Fame and Fortune. And they promised Normal Norman that if he would take them back to his fox den, that they would take care of him, that they would provide for him, that they would go get his meals, that they would cater to him day and night for the rest of their life. Well, he agrees to this because he thinks this is a pretty good deal. I can just sit back, kick back, relax, and just let Fame and Fortune feed me. So he goes back to his fox den, and Fame and Fortune feed him. But as the winter gets deeper and deeper and deeper and food becomes harder and harder to find, there finally comes a point in time where Fame and Fortune aren't able to provide for Normal Norman Fox. One day they come and they have nothing to offer, and they come before Him and they say, we're sorry, we've looked high and low, we've looked everywhere, and we have nothing to give you. There's nothing left to eat. And normal Norman Fox looks at fame and fortune and says, well, there's still you. And with that, they immediately take off at the door. Normal Norman Fox gets up and he starts chasing after him, but he's gained so much weight from being fed by fame and fortune, he can't hardly get out the door. He struggles to get out the door, and then he goes chasing after the fame and fortune. And he's chasing them to the right and to the left, and he's going all over the place with them. Just when he would catch fame, fortune would run in front of him and distract him, and he'd start chasing after fortune. Right before he could get a hold of fortune, fame would cut back in front of him, and he'd start chasing fame. He finally got them into the open ground where there were no bushes or trees or anything for them to hide from, and they start running. He thinks, now's my chance. I've got them right there, and wham! He's run over by a reality moving van. And here's the lesson to the story. Don't get so lost in the pursuit of fame and fortune that you forget that reality is always moving, and it will run over you. That's what we call life. And many of us are so caught up in this pursuit of fame and fortune that we get distracted, and reality flat out runs us over. I work with General Tommy Franks. I run his museum and run his Leadership Institute. And if you come to our museum in Hobart, Oklahoma, it's on the other side of the state. And if you come to our museum in Hobart, Oklahoma, and you walk in the front door, one of the first exhibits that you'll see is one of my favorite. Yet it's one that is oftentimes overlooked. It's an old Nicholson wood saw. Now, you know what I'm talking about, those old hand saws that you cut through wood, okay? Now, if you've ever used one of those, one thing you know is you don't just pick up a wood saw and just start cutting through a piece of wood. The reason is because those teeth are aimed forward. If you just reach it and try and cut through a piece of wood, what happens? The blade bends or it hurts your shoulder, one of the two. And the more you push, the more it digs down, the more it digs down. Well, one day, before General Franks became General Franks, he was young Tommy Franks. And young Tommy Franks in Wynnewood, Oklahoma, in fact, there's 2 people here from Wynnewood, Oklahoma, which means that Wynnewood has a greater representation per capita than any other city in Oklahoma. Anyway, when he was a little kid in Wynnewood, Oklahoma, he was out working with his dad, and he was watching his dad, and his dad was working on the barn. He'd cut a piece of wood, and he would take it up and put it up in the barn, and then he'd come back down and get another piece of wood, and he would cut it and put it up in the barn. Well, young Tommy looks at his dad, and he says, you know what, I want to be like Dad. So he goes over there, and he gets the saw, and he tries to push through the wood, and when he does, his arm catches. And his dad sees what he's doing, and he says, son, Tommy, let me show you how to do that. First, you have to pull, and then you push. You pull, and then you push. And you pull with the same intensity that you push with. Now, if you've ever used a wood saw, you know that that's how it works. You pull first and then you push through. Well, not only did that day did young Tommy Franks, who would become General Franks, learn how to use a wood saw, he got one of his greatest leadership lessons in life. Before you can push people to be the very best, you first have to pull them. You pull them to you through your character. You pull them to you through your ability to surround them around a common vision. You pull them to you through your ability to communicate and clearly share what it is that you're trying to accomplish. And you pull them to you by genuinely caring for them. It's what we call the 4 stars of leadership: character, communication, common vision, and caring. And that's the leadership style that General Franks learned that day working with his dad, that you pull people to you before you push them. Now, we live in a world that works the exact opposite. We live in a world, when you look at Washington, when you look at most corporations, when you look across the business landscape, what you see are individuals who are trying to push other individuals around to get what they want out of life. General Franks learned at a young age that great leadership involves pulling people to you and then pushing them, and here's the key, pushing them to be the very best that they can be. Not that you want them to be, not to accomplish what you want, but to push them to be the very best person that they can be. Now, this leadership style is nothing new. It's been around for a long time. In fact, one of my good friends who passed away last year, Zig Ziglar, used to say it like this: I believe that you can get anything you want out of life if you'll just help enough other people get what they want out of life. Martin Luther King Jr. said it like this: I believe that every man can lead because every man can serve his fellow man. The Good Book says it like this: do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. It's servant leadership. Servant leadership. And that's what I want to talk with you about today. I want to talk with you about this idea of pushing and pulling, and really pulling people to you through your integrity. Thank you. Thank you. Pulling people to you through your integrity. Now, when we're talking about integrity, if I were to go around the room and I were to ask each table, what does integrity mean? We'd have as many definitions of integrity in this room as we have tables. You see, and when you look at business reports, when they do surveys among people who are working in corporations, undeniably, integrity is the number one thing that comes up that people say, that is what I'm looking for in my employer. That is what I'm looking for from my boss. I want a boss that has integrity. Surveys show over and over again, integrity is number one. Yet most of us don't know how to define integrity. Some people will say it means being trustworthy. Some people will say it means being honest. Some people would say it means who you are when no one's looking. That's your integrity. When we all have different definitions. Today I want to start by defining what I believe integrity truly is. Now, integrity, the word integrity, the best way that I can define it comes from a movie. Now, it's a little known movie. You probably a few of you have seen it. It's a movie called Joshua. And it's what it looks like, what it might look like if Jesus were to come back and walk on this earth today and walk around a town as a carpenter. Now, we're not going to go down the religious road today, but it has a beautiful picture of integrity. And it shows Joshua, he comes back to town, and he's working as a carpenter, and he starts interacting with people in this community. Well, there's this one woman in particular who's lost her husband at a very young age. She feels like she's been cheated out of life. She feels like that she's been robbed of something. And so she has a lot of anger and bitterness, and these feelings and emotions well up within inside of her, and she shuts herself off from the rest of the community. Well, Joshua starts to interact with her. And she starts to open up, and she once again starts to feel love. But she mistakes it for romantic love. And one day they're out working in the shop, and as they're out working in the shop and he's working on a chair, she comes along beside him, kind of nuzzles up next to him, and she reaches up to give him a kiss. And when she reaches up to give him a kiss, he steps back and he says, no, you've misunderstood. I've come that your life may be better. Once again, she feels rejected. She feels abandoned. She feels all of those emotions of anger and hatred welling up within her, and she steps back and looks at him and says, my life? My life? And she reaches up and she pulls a glass vase off the shelf and she goes, This is my life. And she throws it down and it shatters into thousands and thousands of pieces of broken glass. And she points at it and she says, that is my life. And she storms out the barn. Now, I don't know about you, but I can relate with that picture. That is my life. I love the next scene. The next scene, Joshua's left town, and before he left town, he left her a gift with the priest. And she's talking with the priest, and the priest says, before Joshua left, he left something for you. And he reaches back and he pulls out a beautiful figurine of a dancing woman made out of thousands of pieces of broken glass. Immediately, tears start streaming down her cheeks. The priest, responding to the emotion that he sees in her, says, I know. It's amazing he can make something so beautiful out of broken glass. And she stops him and says, no. Not something beautiful. Something whole. Something whole. That is integrity. Integrity means whole. Let me take you back to junior high math class. Junior high math class. Any CPAs in here? Okay, I won't ask y'all because you'll get it wrong. In junior high math class, you learned a word, and the word that you learned was integer. Remember that word? Integer. What is an integer? It is a whole number, right? A whole number, a number that is not divided. Listen to it. Integer, integrity, they are the same word. In fact, integrity literally means the state of being an integer. That's what integrity means. It means being a whole person. So what does that mean for you and I? We say it's the number one thing that we're looking for in an individual, but what does it really mean to be whole? What it means to be whole is simply this. If you see me in Tulsa taking all kinds of heck because I'm from Texas, and then you come to Oklahoma City and you see Shannon doing the same thing to me there, And then you go to Hobart and you see me working in the museum. And then you go to church and you see me at church. And then you go tonight to Wichita, Kansas with me to watch my daughter play basketball and yell at the refs, and you see me there. And you go out with me on Friday night and you see me on Friday night. You see the same person. I do not change. I'm the same from place to place to place to place, and that is what it means to have integrity, is that I do not change. And what does that mean? That means that when I'm sitting here talking with John, and I'm talking back and forth to John, and I'm telling him what a great person he is, and then I come over here and I start talking about John, John wants me to have integrity because he wants to know that when I'm talking over here, I'm the same person as I am when I'm talking to him in his face. I do not change. That's what integrity really is talking about. Integrity means I am a whole individual. I do not change. Now, why is this important? It's important because it's the number one quality that people are looking for in their bosses. It's also important because do you realize that 70% of people today, 70% of people say that they hate their job. Not dislike, not would rather have a better one. They hate their job. In fact, it results in about $500 billion in lost productivity. And the number one cause of that? Bad bosses. Bosses without integrity. Now, here's what I know. More than 50 means a majority, right? In most places, unless you're the federal government, you might count different. But in most places, more than 50 means a majority. So, here, listen to what I'm telling you. What I'm telling you is 70% of people hate their job. They say the number one reason they do is because of bad bosses. And bad bosses really are the epitome of lack of integrity, which means what is normal in our world today? Normal is being a boss that has no integrity. Normal is being a bad boss. Normal is being a boss that doesn't care about your employer. Normal is being a boss that has no ethical behavior. That is a norm in our society. Never try to be normal. Never try to be normal. In fact, before I came and started working with General Franks, I was a minister for about 19 years. And I did a lot of counseling, and what's amazing to me is in those counseling experiences, over and over I'd have people that would come into my office and they would share with me their problems, and at some point in the conversation, they would share with me the problems and they'd throw themselves down and go, Warren, I just want to be normal for a change. You ever been there? Who came up with that goal? I mean, in the December edition of Reader's Digest, the cover article was Normal or Nuts? My wife reads Reader's Digest religiously, and she brought that home, and she's sitting there across the couch, and I'm looking at the cover of that, and it says, Normal or Nuts, ? And I looked across the couch and go, are those my only two options? Is that all I get in this world is normal or nuts? Don't ever try to be normal. Don't ever try to be normal. You will succeed and you will be miserable. You will succeed and you will be miserable. Normal for this world are people without integrity. And it takes extraordinary courage to be a person with integrity. Someone who does not change. Someone who is the same from situation to situation. Someone who has wholeness and integrity. You see, General Franks is one of only a handful of leaders in the history of the United States military to go into the military at the rank of a private and leave the military at the rank of a 4-star general, the highest that you can leave. One of only a handful. You have to have integrity to be that kind of leader. Integrity is vital. Now, when we're talking about integrity, what I'm really talking about is you making a decision. You choosing to be the person you were created to be. You choosing to be the person that you were created to be. Now, I want you to think about this for just a moment. I don't think many of us understand how extraordinary we really are in this world. I went into Red Robin one time, yum, and when I was in Red Robin, they have these little coasters, and all of these little coasters have little sayings on them, you know what I'm talking about? And mine, I picked it up and it said, remember, you're unique just like everyone else. It's funny, but it's true. It's true. Do you realize, think about this for a minute. Do you realize that you are the only you that will ever walk this earth? You are the only you that will ever walk this earth. There's never been another you before you. There will never be another you after you. You are the only you that will ever walk this earth. That's extraordinary. That's extraordinary. But think about it like this. Most of us spend our entire lives trying to be someone else. Most of us spend our entire lives trying to emulate someone else. Now, you may be sitting here watching what's been going on for the last 15 minutes or so and thought, man, I just want to be like Warren one day. Okay? I'm sorry that you don't have any higher goals. Okay, first of all. Second of all, let's say you spent your entire life trying to be just like me. And you did everything to try and be just like me. Do you know what the best that you could hope for would be? To be a second-rate me. But you know what's even worse than that? The entire world would miss out on a unique expression of humanity that it would never, ever again see in anyone else. You are the only you that will ever walk this earth. That's extraordinary. It means that you have to make a decision. You have to make a decision. You have to make a decision about the type of person that you're going to be. Now, understand that I use the word decision, not the word choice. I didn't say you get to choose who you're going to be. You have to make a decision about who you're going to be. You see, many of us make a choice about who we're going to be every day, and we choose to be someone different every day. Making a decision about who you're going to be something very different. When you go have a surgery and you have a surgery done, what do? They make an incision, right? And what is an incision? It means that you cut into something. Well, a decision and an incision come from the same word, but they mean something different. Incision means cut into, decision means cut away. So when you make a decision about your life, it's not choosing something. Making a decision means I am cutting off all other possibilities. This is who I am. This is who I am. This is who I was meant to be. And I want to challenge you today to make a decision. Now, that can be very hard. That can be very hard. Let me show you what I'm talking about being hard. First of all, I need a volunteer. Who's willing to volunteer for me? Okay, everybody put your hands down. You can't all volunteer at once. I just need one person to volunteer for just 1 second. I will not embarrass you much. All right, back there. Come on up here. Next time y'all meet, she needs to be at the head table because, yeah, you know what I'm talking about? Okay, all right. Come on, if you would, come on over here. Oh, I could have. Come on down here. All right, let's see. Let's use this one. All right, what I want you to do is, this is your marker. Hi, what's your name?
Amy Van Duzer.
Amy. I'll just go with Amy. Amy, this is your board. What I want you to do is I want you to put 3 distinct marks on this board. Don't draw pictures, but it can be a line, a squiggly, or something like that. And spread them out a little bit. Don't put them all in one place. Kind of spread them out. Put 3 different marks on this board. Great. Let's give Amy a hand. Thank you, ma'am. You may have a seat. I appreciate it. Now, what we're doing here is, have you ever heard the difference between left brain and right brain thinking? You know the difference? Okay, so if I were to say to you 2 plus 2 equals, as many CPAs as we have in here, that was way too slow. If I were to say to you 2 plus 2 equals, okay, that's left brain thought process. It's a linear thought process. There's a right and a wrong answer. It's mainly what you learn in school. Why? Because you can grade it. And there's a right and a wrong answer. So we teach left brain thinking mostly in school. Now, if I were to ask you, red plus a camel equals, okay, very uncreative people. It doesn't matter what you answer. It doesn't matter what you answer. Whatever answer you come up with, you have to creatively find a way to put red and camel together. Now, I was doing this with a group of 3rd graders down in Okmulgee, and I was sitting there talking with them, and I said, red plus camel equals, and a girl sitting on the front row looks at me and goes, desert roadkill. That's not a joke. And I was like, yes. Good answer. We'll talk later. It concerns me a little bit. Anyway, this is an exercise to develop right brain thinking. Okay, develop right brain thinking, develop those right brain processes. It's an art exercise that you do. Now, the way it works is, I have 4 daughters. Yeah, 4 daughters. Pray for me. Pray often. And when we travel a lot, we would do this. And what it is you put 3 marks on a piece of paper, and no matter what 3 marks you put on a piece of paper, you can always create a face using those 3 marks. Okay? So, let me get another color up here. And, yes, I sure can. All right. All right, there we go. Can everybody kind of get there? All right. Now, almost any 3 marks that you put on a piece of paper All right. Kind of see a face there? Kind of got cut off? Can you see it? See it? See it? I didn't say it'd be a good-looking face. I just said it'd be a face. All right, so you can see the eye, the nose, and everything. Okay. Now then, I love doing this experiment, and I love doing this exercise with students, okay? And the reason is because not only does it develop your right brain thinking, a great right brain process, but it also gives us some insight into humanity. You see, no matter what 3 marks you put on this board, we can always create a face using those 3 marks. Always. Always create it. I've done this thousands of times and never have not been able to create a face. Okay? You can always create a face. Now, here's the interesting thing. You see, we're not individuals that come into this world or are a part of this world as a blank slate. That's a lie. In fact, you didn't get to choose what color your skin was going to be. You didn't get to choose what language you were going to speak. You didn't get to choose what color your eyes were going to be. You didn't get to choose what color your hair was going to be. Okay, some of you made that choice. There's a lot of things that you didn't get to choose about yourself, right? Some of the things that I didn't get to choose that my parents were going to divorce when I was 11 years old. I didn't get to choose I was going to be the son of a bankrupt farmer twice. I didn't choose that my parents were going to go through a bitter custody battle. I didn't choose that my brother was going to be stupid one night and go out drinking and driving at 20 and have a wreck. And I didn't choose that when my brother was in the hospital that my parents, still bitter at each other, refused to talk to each other. Okay? I didn't choose we're going to have to turn the machines off and my brother was going to die. Those are some of the marks that are in my life. And the fact of the matter is, in a room this size, there are just as many marks out there or worse than what I have up here. We all have marks in our lives, right? Now, here's why this is important, because I just told you that you have to choose who you're going to be, and I told you not to choose to be someone normal. In order to make that choice, you have to make a decision. You have to cut away all other possibilities, which means you have to take personal responsibility for who you are today. You realize you are who you are today because you've chosen to be that person. You've chosen to be that person. Now, that can be a very hard thing to hear. Because I don't know about you, I've had those mornings where you like roll out of bed and you walk in there and you look in the mirror and you go, that's all I got. That's all I got to work with. Okay? Some of you had that day this morning, didn't you? All right. But the reality is you've chosen to be who you are. Now, these marks that are in our life, a lot of times we'll look at and we'll say, whoa, 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 Warren, I didn't choose that. I didn't choose that mark. And I didn't choose that mark. And I didn't choose that mark. I didn't choose those things. You're right. You didn't choose those things. But you did choose how you were going to respond to those things. And it is the response that has made you who you are. I didn't choose the marks that are on this board. Amy did. But I chose how I was going to respond to them to create the portrait that I wanted to draw. You get to choose how you're going to respond to the marks in your life and draw your portrait of success in your life. You are who you are today because you've chosen to be that person. That's one of the most extraordinary things that you can ever hear. And it's extraordinary because of this. Because if you're able to say, I am who I am because I've chosen to be this person, what you're really saying is, I can choose to be something greater tomorrow. I can choose to be something better tomorrow. But if you're sitting there saying, I didn't choose this, I didn't choose this life, then what you're really saying is, I have no choice about who I'm going to be tomorrow. And I refuse to accept that. I refuse to accept that. You are who you are today because you've chosen to be that person, and you can choose to be something greater tomorrow. You can choose to be something more extraordinary tomorrow. You can choose to be something other than normal tomorrow. It's empowering. It's empowering to be able to make that choice. And it really means that you have the ability to choose integrity. Now, why is that important? Because I cannot tell you how many times I've talked with people in a corporate setting about integrity and being the same person at home, at work, at church, in every setting, and they'll look me right back in the eye and say, Warren, I can't do that. And I'll look back at them and I'll say, why can't you? And they'll look back at me and say, because the business I work for, the environment I work in, you cannot do that. Friends, if that is true, then it's time to change the culture. It's time to change the culture. We have marks in our life, and one of those marks is the corporate culture that we live in. You don't get to choose the mark, but you do get to choose how you're going to respond to that mark. And you can choose to be a person of integrity. It ain't normal. It ain't normal. It's extraordinary. Don't ever try to be normal. You will succeed and you will be miserable. It's the difference between being a victim and being a person of empowerment. Normality is not the goal. Normality is not the goal. Becoming the extraordinary person that you were created to be is the goal. And when you become that extraordinary person, when you develop that integrity, when you start bringing that integrity into that workplace, then you have the ability to impact people's lives. You have the ability to change the leadership style. Instead of pushing people around to get what you want out of life, you're able to begin pulling people to you to form a common vision to move forward in a positive way. You have the ability to draw those people together. But greatness doesn't just happen. Greatness has to be chosen. Greatness has to be chosen. I want to share with you one of the purest definitions, or one of the purest models of leadership that I can share with you. It's one of the greatest examples of leadership that I've ever seen before. And it comes from a country music video of all places. Now, this country music video is from a very little-known country artist. You probably never heard of him. His name is Garth Brooks. And, so Garth Brooks, Yukon boy, Oklahoma boy, major superstar. He did a song, and it's called Standing Outside the Fire. And the song goes like this. Standing outside the fire. Life is not tried, it is merely survived if you're standing outside the fire. Okay? I love the lyrics. The lyrics are great because it's talking about getting in the middle of the fight, getting in the heat, getting right in the middle of the fire and making a difference with your life. I love the song, but I love the video even more. The video is absolutely extraordinary. In the video, it shows Brandon. His real name is Jared. But in the video, he goes by Brandon. Now, Jared afterwards talked about this video, and he said, man, this video is my autobiography. This is my life story right here. Jared has Down syndrome, okay? And Down syndrome, you look a little different, you talk a little different, everything about you, you think a little different, everything about you is just a little bit different. It's not normal, right? And so Jared, every day when he goes to school, his greatest desire is to be like all the other kids. Now think about that. Go back to your junior high days. His greatest desire is to be like you then. Okay? That's his greatest desire. So every day he goes to school and he looks for ways where he could be like everybody else. One day he goes to school, and as he goes to school, he looks up there and he sees a sign up on the wall for the track team, and he thinks to himself, man, this is my opportunity. He goes up there to put his name up on the board, and the coach stops him and says, no, over there. And he looks over there and he sees a sign up for Special Olympics. Now, there's nothing wrong with Special Olympics, but what's his goal? His goal is not to run track. His goal is to be like everybody else. So he looks over at the Special Olympics, he looks up at the track team, he gets this big smile on his face, and he puts his name up there with everybody else. Well, he goes home and he tells his dad. His dad is absolutely furious. Absolutely furious. Because he's afraid that the other kids are going to not accept him, they're going to laugh at him, that he's going to get hurt, he's going to get humiliated. And he's worried about his son. He doesn't want him to do it. But Jared's undeterred. He is absolutely determined to be a part of this track team. He goes out there and he works harder than anybody else. He stays longer at practice than anybody else. When he comes home, he gets his mom to go out with him in the truck and he runs around the block. And he works out harder than anybody else. He's absolutely dedicated to being a part of this team. Finally, it comes time for the big race. This is my favorite scene. It comes time for the big race. And when it comes time for the big race, the camera starts panning down, looking at all the runners getting ready to run. Now, you ladies in the room, you're going to have to help me out on this. You know how as guys, we get the game face? You know what I'm talking about? We like grit our teeth to make these muscles right here come out on our jaw to make us look tougher, like that. Then we burrow the eyebrows, and then we do the nostril flare. You know what I'm talking about? So, We're serious. It shows all these guys, and they're all down there getting ready to run. And then it comes down to Jared. Here's Jared. He's just happy to be in the race. That's all he wanted, was to be in the race. Well, the gun goes up and the gun goes off and they take off running. And they go down the first little straightaway and go around the first curve. They go around to the back straightaway as they're coming down the back straightaway. Jared's in dead last place, but man, here he is. He's in the race. That's all he wanted, was to be in the race. Going down towards the last curve, and as they're going around the last curve, the unthinkable happens. He trips and he falls. He lands on his face, busts his nose, and blood goes everywhere. Mom up in the stands. Everybody else up in the stands. Coach out on the floor, out on the track, throws down his clipboard, shakes his head, and goes out to scrape Jared up off the track so they can start the next race. But it was the dad. It was the dad that didn't want his son to be there but couldn't stay away, who was afraid of what would happen with the son but just wanted his son to do well. And the dad was standing outside the fence and he's watching his son run. And he sees his son fall and bust his nose. He sees his son's mom up in the crowd covering her mouth. He sees everybody else pointing and looking at his son. He sees the coach throw down the clipboard, shake his head at his son, and come out to scrape his son up off the track and get him out of the way so that they can start the next race. And as that coach is going out there to scrape Jared off the floor, it's the dad who jumps the fence and says, "You don't touch him! He's not finished yet." And he gets down beside his son and says, "Come on, son. I know it hurts, but you can do it. Come on, son. Get up and run. 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 Come on, son. Get up and run." And he runs the rest of the race with his son. That is leadership. That is leadership. You see, we go into a bookstore and you can see an entire section filled with management books and leadership books. And I went and I got a book and I picked up 2 books by the same publisher, side by side. One of them was Management Styles of Abraham Lincoln. The other one was Management Styles of Attila the Hun. I kid you not. Same publisher, side by side. One of them said build coalitions. The other one said decapitate all your enemies. And they were both serious. We try and make leadership some complicated, overworked, overarching thing. Leadership is not hard. Leadership is not hard. Leadership is simply understanding that everybody at your table right now, everybody in your workplace, everybody in your home is at one of 3 places in life. They are either running the race about to fall on their face, have recently fallen on their face and have just got back up and started running again, or are currently face down on the track waiting for anyone to jump the fence and look them in the eye and say, "You're not finished yet. Get up and run." It's called life. That's what life is. It's a series of runnings and falling downs and getting back ups. And great leaders, extraordinary leaders, are simply the people who have the character, have the ability to communicate and surround people around the common vision, and absolutely care about the people around them enough to know where they are on the track of life. And then great leaders have the courage to speak into their lives. Great leaders have the courage to look them in the eye and say, "You're not finished yet. Get up and run. You have not yet dreamed all you can dream. Get up and run. You have not yet achieved all you can achieve. Get up and run. You have not yet believed all you can believe. Get up and run. You have not yet come up with all that you can come up with. Get up and run. You have not yet gone through everything that you can go through and come out better. Get up and run." We have not yet got to the point where we are in America where we are destined to failure. It's time for us to look into the lives of each other and say, "Get up and run." You have the ability to accomplish more than you can even dream if you will get up and run. And that ain't normal. That ain't normal. That's extraordinary. When you find leaders that are able to speak into the lives of other people, that are able to pull people to them through their ability to truly care about the people around them, look them in the eye and say, you're not done yet, get up and run. You have the opportunity to do something extraordinary in this world. You have the opportunity to do something that is absolutely extraordinary. But it takes courage. It takes courage. It takes integrity. It takes being that same person at work that you are at home, that you are at church, that you are out on Friday night. And that's one of the hardest things that you can ever do. It's one of the most extraordinarily hard things that you can accomplish in your life is to go through one day with absolute integrity. Let me say that again. One of the hardest things that you will ever accomplish in your life is to go through one day with absolute integrity. It's a challenge for us each and every day, and it is not normal. It is extraordinary. It is something absolutely extraordinary. Now, when we talk about that, and we talk about those leadership styles, when we talk about having integrity and being that person of integrity, we're talking about servant leadership. We're talking about servant leadership, serving the people around you. When we talk about that, a lot of times we feel like we're incapable of that service. We feel like we're incapable of being that kind of type of leader. Now, how many of you right now, I am so far off my notes, I don't even know where I'm at. So we're just going to go with it. How many of you right now are sitting here thinking, man, this guy right here, he's a natural speaker. He's a natural speaker. I'm that bad? Oh, okay, there we go. All right. So everybody that just raised their hand right there, okay? Here's a great example of leadership. Here's a great example of leadership. General Franks is notorious for saying, leaders are not born, leaders are developed. Okay? And a lot of times we have a lot of errors in our thinking. We have a lot of errors in the way we process stuff. One of them is we think that there are such things as natural leaders. And secondly, we think that there are such things as natural speakers. Okay? If you raised your hand and said, this guy's a natural speaker, you're wrong. Okay? There has yet been born a baby who came out of the womb and stood up and said, 7 years ago. It hadn't happened. Okay? You don't even get to choose what language you're going to speak. You don't even get to choose what language you're going to speak. You have to learn and you have to develop those skills. Integrity is a skill. Integrity is a part of a character development that you have to develop in your life. You have to choose in your life. And just like communication is, and being able to speak into the lives of other people is something that you have to develop. Okay? Now, when we're talking about developing it, I haven't always spoken like this. In fact, I came from a town called Texaco, New Mexico. Yeah, put another mark on the board. Okay? I came from Texaco, New Mexico. Now, have y'all ever heard George W. Bush talk? Okay, he sounds normal to me. Okay? That's the way we all talk down there. We all talk that's the way I grew up. If George W. Bush would give me about 30 minutes, I could fix him. I could. You know why he sounds the way he does? It's because all of us in that area of West Texas and eastern New Mexico, we talk the same way. We don't move our teeth. Watch him sometime. He doesn't move his teeth. We talk like this. Our teeth stay right here, and we just kind of talk like this. And if you're going to talk like this, you got to slow down. You know what I mean? That way people can understand what you're trying to say, and you don't want to use those obnoxious, you don't want to use those big words because they don't come out very well. And this is the way I grew up speaking, was just like this. I mean, that's the way I talked. I thought this was the way everybody talked. I don't know what those crazy New Yorkers are doing over there. You know what I mean? And when I became a youth minister at the age of 19, I was working in a church, and they don't let people speak in big church. You know what I'm talking about? You don't let youth ministers speak in big church. They stay in little church, not big church. And one day the pastor, the associate pastor, and the associate pastor, and all the lay leaders, I think all the men were gone, except for me. And so they let me speak in big church. And I was so excited. I called my mom and I said, Mom, I get to speak in big church. Come down and listen to me. So my mom flew from Albuquerque, New Mexico down to Lubbock, Texas to listen to me speak in big church. And I got up there and I pulled out the Word. And brothers and sisters, I'm here today to share with you the Word. And I let them have it. I let them have it. I knew this was my only chance in big church, so I gave them everything I had, you know. And so I gave them everything I had, and we went after it. Man, I was pumped about it. I was so excited. And I got done, and I went over to my mom, and my mom had flown all this way to hear me, and I walked up to my mom, and I was excited, and I said, "Hey, Mom, what'd you think?" My mom, she held me at arm's length. If your mom holds you at arm's length, it ain't good. My mom held me at arm's length, and she looked me in the eye, and she said, "Son, you're one of the smartest men I know. But as long as you sound like a hillbilly, no one's going to listen to you." And she walked off. That was all she said. And she wasn't kidding. She wasn't kidding. I learned two things that day. When your mom holds you at arm's length, it ain't good. And the second thing, if your mom is a speech-language pathologist, don't invite her to listen to you speak. But she was right. She was right. I sounded like a hillbilly. And so she began to give me some techniques, and I began to develop some techniques to work on my speaking. And I learned something. Your jaw moves. And not just when you chew. When you talk, you can move your jaw too. And I learned how to open my jaw, and I learned how to begin to speak. And I figured out something, that when you speak and you open your jaw and you begin to enunciate your words, you can actually talk faster and say more things in a shorter amount of time, and people still listen. It's cool. And here's what I'm trying to tell you. Is this. How many of you think you're artists in here? Artists? Lots of CPAs in here. Okay? So we had a few hands that went up. Okay, if you did not raise your hand, I just got y'all scared of raising your hands now, right? Okay, if you did not raise your hands, what you're telling me is that you probably draw at about a 12-year-old level. No, everyone says, or worse. It's not worse, it's 12 years old. And the thing is, most of us speak at a 12-year-old level. And most of us speak, read, and draw at a 12-year-old level. All New York Times bestseller books are written at 8th grade level. At 8th grade level. That's why it's about 12, 13. Okay? And why? Because that's the age. You see, I have a little 2-year-old granddaughter. I love my little granddaughter. Tess is the most extraordinary thing. All she's got to do is pick up a marker and just put a line on a piece of paper, and I'm like, "Oh, that's so pretty! Look at what she did! Look at G-Ma, come look at what Tessa did! Look at that! Let's put that on the refrigerator. We go back there and we put it on the refrigerator. You know what I'm talking about? Okay, and that's what we all grew up with. We grew up with people saying, "Oh, that's so good! Oh, you're such a good artist! You're so." And then you got to be 12, and someone walked by and said, "What is that?" And you said, "I ain't doing that no more." Or you got in class and your teacher said, "Would you read page number 34, paragraph 4, and there's a word you didn't know?" And you said, "I'm not doing that anymore." Or you got up in front of people and you tried to say something and they laughed at you and you said, "I'm not doing that anymore," and you stopped. You see, it's not that we don't have talent, it's that we stopped developing. Because we made a decision that we either had talent or we didn't talent, and I'm not going to try anymore. That's why most of us speak, write, read, and draw at a 12-year-old level. Most people in America. Leadership skills are something that you must develop. Being a person of integrity, having those leadership skills is vital. If you are a caring and outgoing people, but you do not have the ability to speak into someone's life, you're lacking. You're missing an opportunity to lead because you need to develop those opportunities to speak into someone's life. And that ain't normal. Most people just accept that I am who I am. But no, you get to choose who you're going to be. You get to choose whether you're going to develop your leadership skills. You get to choose whether you're going to be a person of integrity or not. You get to choose who you're going to be, and you can choose to be someone who is able to invest in the lives of other people. But you have to choose to develop. You have to choose to make those hard decisions and cut away those things that take away from your integrity. You have to make that choice. I don't care what the marks are in your life. I only care how you respond to them. The response is what determines who you are, and that ain't normal. Choosing to respond in a positive way is extraordinary. And the last thing that I want to share with you, and I want to end on this, is there is a lie that permeates our society, especially in the corporate world. A lie that casts a shadow of fear over our lives that keeps us from choosing to be a person of integrity, that keeps us from being a person who's willing to step out on that limb and take a chance, the lie that keeps us from experimenting with our speech and our writing, it keeps us from experimenting with speaking into the lives of other people. There is a lie that casts fear over us, that robs us from being the best person that we can be. And I want to share with you what that lie is, okay? To do that, I've got to take you back down to when you were a little kid, okay? Because I found that if you can make something simple enough for a little child to understand it, sometimes adults get it too, okay? So, I want to play a game with you. You remember the opposite game? Remember the opposite game? Okay, we're going to play the opposite game. And I want you to play along with me. So, if I say up, you would say? Down. Good. Okay. Some of you don't look very happy about this game, but it's okay. We'll go with it anyway. Okay. So up, down, in, out, right, left, black, white, success, failure, wrong. Right. No. You're wrong. I'm telling you, you're wrong. Correct. The opposite. Correct. Correct. I'm telling you, you're wrong. Oh, you got to love the hecklers. The opposite of success is not, nor has it ever been, failure. Let me say that again. The opposite of success is not, nor has it ever been, failure. But fear of failure keeps most of us from being the best leader that we can be. We're scared to death of failing. Failure is a part of life. Did you not hear what I said at the beginning? Life is about a series of runnings and falling downs and getting back ups. Failure is a part of that process. Okay? I mean, have you ever thought about how many times Abraham Lincoln failed at running for political office before he became President of the United States? Have you ever thought about how many times Thomas Edison failed to create a light bulb before he created the light bulb? Have you ever thought about how many times Donald Trump has failed in his life? Have you seen his hair? Every day. Every day. But I'm talking about his bankruptcy. How many times has he been bankrupt and come back and still one of the wealthiest men in America? Failure is not the opposite of success. But it's a lie that we teach to our children. It's a lie that we teach in our schools. It's a lie that we teach in our business. Failure is simply a mile marker on the way to success. That's all it is. Here is the opposite of success. Are you listening? Here's the opposite of success. The opposite of success is when you settle. The opposite of success is when you settle and you say, this is as good as it gets. This is as good as I'm going to be. I'm satisfied. That's the opposite of success. As long as you're failing, you're still trying. As long as you're failing, you're still moving forward. As long as you're failing, you're still putting yourself out there and you're learning and developing and growing as an individual. The opposite of success is not, nor has it ever been, failure. The opposite of success is when we settle. And here's why I want to end on that note, is because I want to bring it back to being someone who is not normal and being a person of integrity. Most of us have settled in our lives. Most of us have settled in our lives, and we have compartmentalized our lives where I am a completely different person at work than I am at home, than I am at church. Hi, brother, how you doing? Everything's fine. Isn't that how we do it at church? And then we get to business, and we get the gangrene eyes out. We're like Mr. Potato Head, and we change our eyes in every situation. We compartmentalize our lives at each and every segment. Here's what I want to share with you. You have the ability, if you will not settle and say that lack of integrity is just part of our world, you have the ability to choose to be a person of integrity. You have the ability to choose to be a leader. You have the ability to choose to be a person of character. You have the ability to choose to acknowledge the marks that are in the corporate world, but also choose how you're going to respond to them. You have the ability to do that as long as you do not settle for the world as it is. Don't ever try to be normal. You will succeed and you will be miserable. And here's what I know. If you do not choose who you're going to be in this world, the world will choose who it wants you to be, and you will be miserable. You must make a choice. You must make a decision and decide who it is that you were created to be. And that's not normal. That's extraordinary. Because greatness does not just happen. Greatness has to be chosen. So make a choice and go be great. Thank you. I was just informed that you aren't through grilling me, so I would like to open up if anyone has any questions or anything that you would like to ask me. I'd be happy to answer those right now.
What do you think?
You had made a point in the middle of your presentation about decision making and choosing.
Mm-hmm.
And so you sort of ending saying you need to make a choice to so forth and so forth.
Right.
Is it actually the same? Choosing and deciding?
No, they're not the same. Choosing is choosing one of many options that are out there. And what I ended with was choose greatness. I was talking about choosing greatness. What I was talking about decision, I was talking about deciding who you're going to be. And I think there's a difference between the two because I believe that there's my personal views, my personal beliefs, is I believe that you are on this world for a reason, that you are on this world for a purpose, that you were created to be a specific person on this world. And you have to make a decision to be that person. You have to cut away all other ways of living to choose the way that I'm going to, to decide who I'm going to be in this world. But once you make that decision, once you cut away all those other options, say, this is who I am, then there's a whole realm of choices in which you can choose greatness. You can choose greatness in ministry, you can choose greatness in the corporate world, you can choose greatness in museums. You know, there's a whole bunch of choices out there that do not change who you are. You bring who you are into those choices. And so I may not have been very clear in delineating those two, but I believe when it comes to yourself personally, you have to make a decision about who you are. When it comes to where you're going to express yourself in the world, there's a lot of choices out there. And the key is you don't change when you go after those choices. That kind of,
Yes.
okay. No. Yes.
You mentioned earlier in your talk about 70% of the people probably in this room hate their job, or at least in America hate their job. And the biggest reason is because of their boss. The boss lacks integrity. So what is the best advice you can give to bosses or people working for bosses, how they might be able to impact their situation without having to leave or try a different boss or a new boss?
Yeah.
Can you change a boss, and can a boss change himself?
Absolutely. I mean, anybody can change by making a decision. And I think the best advice, you've heard it said before that your employees shouldn't be surprised when they see you at home, and that your family shouldn't be surprised when they see you at work. And I think in a lot of places that shows where our lack of integrity is, because our kids are surprised when they see how we act at work. Or our employees are surprised when they see us talking with our kids, they see us hanging around our family. But it shows the disconnect between our work life and our home life. And I think really what the key component there is I talked about the 4 stars of leadership. I think most of us nail character. Most of the people in this room are here because you have a strong desire to develop character. Most of us nail that when we want to, when we choose that. Okay? Most of us we are in this room are probably in a leadership role. Communication, you're very good at communicating. Common vision, we understand that in our business world. This is what we're trying to do. This is the widget we're trying to connect. It's the 4th star that I think really impacts a business setting, and that's caring. I think that's caring. I think a lot of times where the disconnect comes from is we are pushing out widgets and we objectify people. When you talk excuse me just while I delineate for a second. When we talk about women, sexualization of women, we understand the word objectification and how wrong that is. Okay? A lot of times we do the exact same thing in the business place. We objectify not women sexually, but we objectify all employees towards the business bottom line. And we see them as objects to accomplish the goal rather than individuals that we truly care about. And I think that's the number one key component to bring more integrity into the workplace is caring about the people that are on your team. Understanding them, understanding where they are in their life, and truly having a caring for them. That's my opinion. So, thank you.